So I finally beat Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and I mean I beat like everything. I've cleared out the map, beat the order, did the main story, literally found like the awesome weapons of Excalibur and Mjolnir, and I have to say I was pleasantly surprised and also surprisingly disappointed in some areas of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. So I'm here to just give you my thoughts on the game as a whole and do a little compare and contrasting to the other Assassin's Creed video games that we've played in the past. Greetings fellow nerds, welcome to another Nerdful video. Today I am just giving you my review on that game right there, Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And you'll see me do additional content like this throughout the week. I mostly play MTG, but I like to just do additional stuff because I'm just a giant nerd and I have to, do multiple stuff in my time, even though I'm crazy busy. Sometimes I question my decisions. But anyways, I just want to give you my full thoughts on beating Assassin's Creed Valhalla and kind of what I would like the series to do as we wait for the DLCs. And massive spoilers ahead, so if you haven't beat the game or you're being a completionist, you might want to come back and check this video at another time, as I'm going to be spoiling some really big stuff. So I won't take any offense to it, but yeah, I want you to enjoy the game to its fullest. But if you have beaten the game and you just want to get my thoughts, keep on watching. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, that like button, that alarm bell, whatever helps you find me easier in the future, and just spread the word of this channel. So thank you all for your support. So first off, I want to talk about the story. I always talk about the main plot, the story of a video game, because that's what really I think captures people. That's what makes a video game memorable. Of course, there are important things like combat, bugs, certain mechanics, but at the end of the day, a video game like Assassin's Creed Valhalla that has a plot, that has a story, and that's kind of its main drive, that's really important, and that's something I want to talk about. And I have to say, regarding the story, I liked parts of what they were trying to do, and then there were certain things where I thought this is like really unnecessary. So if you played the game or beaten it, you know that the map is divided by different areas. Mainly when you go to England, that's where your main story is for the most part. And it's divided by different segments, and each segment has its own story, which kind of ties in to the main plot. And that's the key word being kind of is really a big problem, I think. Your objective is, to gather alliances, to gather allies, in case something big is going to happen in the future. And these allies are super cool. I actually, even though there are some times where I totally forgot this character existed that I made an alliance with, and they come back at a later point, it's really cool to see that, be like, oh yeah, I remember like doing that whole thing with you. The problem is that some of these alliances that you build feel more like side quest, or you don't really develop a strong relationship with some of the characters that you make alliances with. And I think Gloucester is probably like the perfect example. Like, the guy you make an alliance with is like, he's not really there for like a huge chunk of the story. Like, he's there in the beginning kind of being a jerk, and then he gets captured, and you find him in the end and he's like, yeah, I'll make an alliance with you. And it's like, oh well, I'm not like really attached to you, so I'm not like, I guess it's cool and all, but it doesn't mean a whole lot to me. And of course, all those alliances do matter in the end, because you've essentially developed built a giant army that you need in the end to defeat Alfred of Wessex. And what's interesting is that you don't really like see the army. Like, you just really see your main allies and saying like, yeah, I brought my forces, and it's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna take your word for it, even though I don't really see it. Even in the battle, it's like you're just really seeing generated character randomizers that I think were all really we're all wearing Viking clothing. It's like, I don't recall seeing Saxon allies on the battlefield, and of course that's important, but it just felt a little anticlimactic going around making these alliances that you think are important, but in the end kind of is, kind of isn't. But what I did appreciate about the main plot is that they're trying to kind of make the Assassin's Creed, the entire of Assassin's Creed, more canon, more feasible, more reasonable. And they did a lot of callbacks, like, when you go to Vinland, aka North America, and you meet the Native Americans and you see the apple being discovered, and you see what people believe are Connor's ancestors. You you know, having the apple and burying it in the future and all that. So, you know, they're tying stuff to Assassin's Creed 3. So that's really cool. And of course, I think they explain kind of like the Isu a little bit more. Now we have an entire different pantheon of Isu. And it's really cool to see them try to like connect everything together, because that's something they really haven't done in a while. Probably after Assassin's Creed 3, they kind of just focus more on the whole like, okay, we're just going to use fun historical references and then put Assassin's Creed in them, and they haven't really tied back to the modern story, and they did that pretty well, I would say, here. And even if you're like a first-time player, you know, you can easily look it up, or you can kind of just understand that like, okay, there's some other forces at work here that tie in to the main story. And I think like, you know, regarding like the Isu, like, you know, when you find Yggdrasil, which is like a mechanical tree, which was like super cool. I actually really like their take on certain Norse mythology and tying it into like the Assassin's Creed flavor. That was really cool. Like your whole kind of bout and moments with Sigurd are actually like really memorable. But I think the most important thing they did with the story was tying your vision quest to the main story, and then you find out later that Basim is Loki. If you like kind of did the vision quest first, and then you like, you know, save those moments towards the end, you realize, because I didn't realize that it was the same voice, because I realized, you know, Eivor is clearly Odin, Sigrid is Tyrsol, oh god, I forgot the name, you know, and Halfdan is Thor, which like is interesting because you don't meet Halfdan until like way later, so you might forget. But anyways, all that aside, it was really cool to kind of see them connect the two, because it feels like the vision quest are like, oh, I'm just following Odin, and I know I'm Odin, but like I don't really know much else. But then when you make the connection that Basim is Loki, it's like, oh shoot, like it's kind of mind-blowing. So I think they did that pretty well, connecting the two. But those vision quests and like Basim being Loki, there is like, I have one huge issue with that. So my biggest issue is actually in regards to Sean and Rebecca. Sean and Rebecca have been in the Assassin's Creed series for a very long time, and they've been laid out to be very smart individuals, right? Like Rebecca's the hacker, the tech girl, and then Sean's the historian who like, you know, knows certain like details that like even other historians wouldn't like necessarily recall or remember. And, you know, if you're in the Animus and you're living out and you're seeing, you know, someone's past you know, experiences, you know, it doesn't take very long to figure out that like, oh, Basim is Loki, and then, you know, we just found Basim and he's at our door. Like, I don't know if Sean and Rebecca are like pretending to not know, but it seems like they don't know who he is, and I just feel like that's it seems really dumb. Like, you know, they're smart individuals. They see, you know, I would assume they've seen the vision quest through the Animus, and it seems like they would be able to figure out, oh, we got like a living Isu right in front of us, and Loki's known as the trickster god. He's not necessarily, you know, I know he's with the assassins, but that might not mean much. But overall, I did enjoy the story. You know, even meeting Alfred as you complete the Order of the Ancients, kind of as your post-story moment, is pretty cool, I would say. Actually, it's kind of redeeming, and it takes a new spin on finding the Order of the Ancient, like kind of side quest that has always been there. And I actually like really thought it was cool to see Alfred kind of reject that notion of like, no, I'm actually a Christian, by the way, and not like a crazy like lunatic Christian. Like, yes, I have my faults and stuff, but like this idea of the Order of the Ancients is totally not what I believe. And I thought that was kind of cool. That's a kind of like cool, almost redeeming moment. And you can kind of see why Eivor goes, oh, well, you know, I don't have a reason to kill you all of a sudden then. Now, from a completionist point of view, this game had a lot to do, and I'm actually glad they did certain things right from a completionist perspective. Now, let's be real. The side quest in Odyssey, as great as that game was, the side quest in Odyssey took way too long. Like, there were moments where I just, you know, spent, you know, an entire like 4 hours just doing side quests that like really felt like a waste of time. And in Valhalla, they fix that. You know, they make the side quests, or the mysteries as they call them, pretty short. You know, they're more like puzzles and riddles, but it doesn't take, you know, very much thought, and it's more of the content. And there are some like really cool references in those mysteries. Like there's the One Punch Man side quest or mystery that I thought was hilarious. There's a guy who throws himself off a cliff because he thinks about the afterlife, and he's like, I want to bring all my stuff with me, my time is done. Like there's just fun moments like that, and I thought that was really well done. Now I gotta admit something. As easily as I found Excalibur, I didn't know how to find Mjolnir, and I've been watching YouTube videos about like things you can get, things you want to get, and I saw Mjolnir at the top of the list, and I just thought, I haven't found Mjolnir yet. Like, where is it? And I had to look it up to find out where Mjolnir was, and it seemed a little like kind of off the radar. Like you'd have to look pretty deep and far to find Mjolnir, but you know, I get that it's a mythical weapon, it's an Isu weapon, so they would make it a little bit more difficult to find, but I think they could have, you know, made certain things, like even Excalibur, I just thought, like, someone might not run into this cave, like, they might not just think about it, and I thought they could have made that a little bit easier, especially for post-game content, because you can't lift Mjolnir until you've done everything in regards to defeating the sisters, defeating all the Templars, so I think they could have made it easier to find, but that's a small opinion. From a completion perspective, I think they did everything right, honestly. And it was fun. It was fun. And I did it throughout the story. And I never really felt like it took too long. It was just a fun activity to do. Now, I'm going to wrap up here and talk about the DLCs. The DLCs could be a hit or a miss, and most DLCs are hit or miss. I think Odyssey did a pretty good job with the DLCs. Like, they were full fleshed out stories. They were kind of its own. It did really feel like an extension of Odyssey, but within its own game. And there are things that I think Valhalla needs to do now that there's a little bit of a shift going on. And now that Basim is our new protagonist, and I use quotes around that because it's Loki, and I'm not really sure if I trust Loki to, you know, have the, you know, Assassin's Creed in mind. I think there are things they could do with Basim to really extend the lore of Assassin's Creed Valhalla in the DLCs. So the first thing I think they need to do with the DLC is really expand Basim's story throughout the DLC. Again, I know this is more about Eivor's more exploration, his journey throughout his time as he is in England or goes to Finland or whatever other country is out there. But I think it's also important to kind of see Basim's goals and objectives expanded more. You know, we learned that he wants to bring his family back together. He's got the staff with Alethea, you know, trapped, and, you know, his goal is to bring her out, be with her again. And I would like to kind of see that expanded more upon the DLCs. I'm not really sure how they would do that, but I think it's actually important that we learn more and more about our new protagonist, and I think the DLC is the perfect time to do that. And it would give like more than just extra content about Eivor. It would give kind of a sneak peek of you know, us getting to know Basim a little bit more, kind of where he might go into next. A lot of people, you know, are speculating that he's going to China next for the next 2022 big Assassin's Creed game, which I'm finally excited for. They finally do an Asian theme. But all that aside, most important thing is to expand on Basim / Loki as we play the DLC. Now, I do have to talk about some of the downsides, more notable downsides of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and really there's only one, but it's the bugs. Like, the bugs were unfortunately a little too obvious, you know, and they were just pretty distracting. Like, you know, some of the main ones are, you know, you can't start a certain quest unless you enter a certain way. Some of the fast travel issues. I don't care about like the bugs that, like, you know, break certain things. Like, you know, some people were able to get through barred doors, like using dual wield axes at a certain time until they fix that patch. You know, some people could break a huge fall by heavy attack on the ground. That's not stuff I'm talking about. That's like, you know, and those things people find accidentally and then spread throughout the internet. And those aren't really like game breaking, quote unquote. I'm talking about like glitches where you get like launched like 50 feet in the air, or bosses would get stuck underground and you'd have to restart the boss fight. You know, stuff like that. I think the worst one I've been through is the boss being stuck underground, and this is where I was actually fighting Fenrir in the Vision quest. I talked about this in my last video, but it was just so bad I have to talk about it again. And I had to restart, and I was like on the last phase, like the last third of his health, and it was just really frustrating that existed. And you know, I know people have gone through other ones where like, you know, characters' faces were like messed up. Certain weapons, the arrow quiver one was like pretty notable. I didn't like, it didn't bother me too much because like I could still beat bosses with the limited arrows, but I'm sure that was, you know, kind of frustrating to like see like, oh, I upgraded my quiver to max and now like months later is it only fixed. So stuff like that, I think it felt like those were more or less obvious and they should have been fixed before the game ever released. But luckily they weren't like, you know, massive. Like I think, you know, it wasn't everywhere like Cyberpunk or Avengers, but it was still notable, and I think they should have been prepared for that, honestly, a lot more. So overall, I have to give this game probably like a solid like 80 to 85 out of 100. I still think Black Flag and this Ezio Assassin's Creed 2 trilogy are by far the best ones, because not only is the story much more in depth and more emotional, but none of the things you do feel like you are being rushed in a certain sense, or the stories tie in a lot nicer than Assassin's Creed Valhalla. So I think that's why 4 and 2 have always been people's favorites. There's just, the story is a lot more coherent, more linear, and even the side activities that you do feel, you know, like it doesn't take away from the game. So I would say, you know, Valhalla is probably underneath that though. Like I did enjoy it more than Odyssey and Origins, as much as I love those games. So, you know, I think it's a good step in the direction, especially with kind of how Assassin's Creed is evolving. So yeah, it's still a great game. If you haven't played it, definitely play it. You know, if you're, you know, if you have other thoughts, I've seen, you know, other Facebook pages go like, oh, Odyssey and Origins is way better. And I'm just thinking in my head, like, I don't see that, but, you know, I'm glad you enjoyed those games more. I just enjoyed Valhalla a lot more than those games. And it's nice to see that the game has evolved in a way that they responded to the fans, and I think that's what's important at the end of the day. They responded to the fans, they listened, and we got a game that I think showed that. Now I wish they would fix the bugs, because that's always been a problem with the Assassin's Creed games, but hopefully we'll get that with the next Assassin's Creed that's likely taking place in China, which I'm really excited for. So that's all I have for you today. I know I haven't been posting these kind of contents more. You know, I'm in my last semester of law school, so hopefully, you know, when that is over, I'll be able to post a lot more, just kind of these commentaries, these comments. I just finished watching Sweet Home on Netflix, which I want to talk about as well. There's a lot of things, but you know, if you're interested in seeing more stuff like this, you're not subscribed, go ahead, you know, click those buttons, hit that like button, hit that alarm bell, and let me know what other content you want me to kind of cover as I, you know, just explore the nerd world. I'm probably going to talk about WandaVision when that releases. Really excited about that. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all for your support. This channel's been growing tremendously thanks to you guys, so really appreciate it. I'll see you for your next Nerdville.